Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Code and the Coding Coders Who Code It. I am your host, Drew Bragg, and it is my privilege today to be joined by Josh Wood. Josh, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, could you do a brief intro?
So I am the co-founder of HoneyBadger IO. We're a web application monitoring platform. We do error tracking, log monitoring, and a lot of other things, uptime monitoring. And we've been doing that for going to be year 12 coming up. So I've been doing it for a long time. We're fully bootstrapped. We've never taken any funding or anything. So we've been kind of doing this on our own terms for a long time. And I'm also a Ruby developer. Worked on a few Ruby projects you might have heard of. Heya is my gem that's like a marketing email thing for Rails. And then I've also, one of my favorite projects was Exceptional Creatures, which some people, more people than I realized have heard of. I've been finding out recently. So that's pretty cool. I love that project.
We used Exceptional Creatures in boot camp.
Awesome.
When we were going through and learning about Ruby exceptions, we tapped into that and it was awesome.
Really?
It is a
That's
really
so
cool
cool
project.
People keep popping up and just telling me stories like this. And it's really strange because you just put something out just because it's kind of fun. It's 6 years ago or something. I did that. And it's inspired other people to do art. And
it's super cool. Great. So for anyone who's new to the show, the way this is going to work is I'm going to ask Josh 3 questions. I'm going to ask him what he's working on, what is a blocker that he has. If he doesn't have a current blocker, what's a recent blocker he had and how did he and his team go around solving it? And then my personal favorite question, what's something cool, new, or interesting that he's learned, discovered, built, anything, and it doesn't even have to be coding related. So without any further ado, Josh, what are you working on?
I'm working on a lot of different things. It feels like I keep rebuilding my to-do list because it overwhelms me. And then I just come up with a different one, delete everything and start over. But what I primarily do at HoneyBadger, my role right now is marketing and DevRel for the most part. We're technical founders and we're a small team. We're 4 engineers, including myself and my co-founder, Ben Curtis, which a lot of people don't know. We do work with a few contractors and things, but our team is very small. And so we kind of juggle all the hats in the business between me and Ben. But I'm currently working on marketing and we just launched a new product. Big feature in HoneyBadger called HoneyBadger Insights, which is a logging and observability type tool, a little bit like maybe CloudWatch Logs or Splunk or Honeycomb, for example. So basically, it's a structured event logging system that you send events to. Hopefully, that's maybe you're using Log Rage in your Rails logs or something, and you can send all of your logs to HoneyBadger now, and it will allow you to use our query language called BadgerQL, which lets you do analytics and aggregations, create charts, and put those charts on dashboards, that sort of thing. So I've been working on marketing insights, doing a lot of design and content and going to conferences, just all kinds of things. I'm going to be at Blue Ridge Ruby later this month. And I just came back from RailsConf, which was awesome.
Yes,
so I'm
agreed.
excited.
RailsConf was awesome. I was super happy with how RailsConf shook out this year and
me too.
Happy he was able to go. What was your favorite part of this year's RailsConf?
Oh man, everything was great. I just thought it was a really good conference. I normally do the hallway track primarily. I went to some of the talks and the talks were great. And then there were talks that I missed and I wish I had gone to after, people told me how awesome they were. Like Cody's starting the truck. Yeah,
I haven't
pretty
laughed
awesome.
that hard at something someone built with code. Like Joel Quinville was at the same time, so I was literally running between rooms.
Yeah,
Joel's was hilarious because he did a gnome voice for his whole Dungeons and Dragons-esque thing, which had me cracking up. But when Cody started his truck with code, I died laughing. It was amazing.
So awesome. Yeah, and then Colin and the golden tickets and there are just some great ideas. And that's what I love about Ruby is just the weird creative things that people do. And so I felt like there was a lot of that vibe at RailsConf this year. And then it was just a great crowd in the hallway track. It was great to catch up with everyone and meet some new people and even some people that I know online and haven't met in person yet. So
yeah, conferences are great for that. Did you attend / work on anything during Hack Day?
I worked with Ben Curtis and I kind of hacked on some HoneyBadger stuff together. I didn't make it to one of the tables, but we were working on our HoneyBadger gem. Actually, we're building some instrumentation for insights, so it'll be kind of APM style, collect a bunch of things and give you all the charts for free.
Do you and Ben get to work together in person often, or is it almost always fully remote?
It's pretty much fully remote, but we meet up at least once a quarter in person to talk. We kind of have a quarterly strategy, that's just kind of like company business things. We wear our suits and ties. But yeah, we get together. He's in Kirkland up by Seattle, and I'm in the Portland area down here in Vancouver, Washington. So we meet in Olympia, which is kind of halfway between the two of us. And yeah, we'll meet up. And then, yeah, here and there. Otherwise, we're hoping to plan more like company meetups this year. So yeah, getting together with the team a little bit more. But yeah, it's mostly online.
You'll be trekking across the United States to get to Blue Ridge, complete opposite coast.
Yeah.
Did you go last year to Blue Ridge? I don't remember you being there.
No, I didn't.
The whole conference was a whirlwind. That was a great conference.
Yeah, I've heard good things. I'm excited to get there.
Yeah, and Asheville is an awesome place to have a conference, especially one with an open lunch.
Sounds cool. Are you going to be there this year?
I'm not going to be there this year. I've been all over the place this year with conferences, so had to start getting picky and choosy. And as much as I loved Blue Ridge last year, the timing of it wasn't going to work out with other family things. And I will be at Brighton Ruby next month, which is going to be kind of a big trip because that's
cool. Yeah,
across an ocean, not just the continental United States.
Yeah, that's a bit of a trek.
Yeah, a little bit, but it'll be fun. I've never been to England before, so good excuse to speak at a conference and get to see a place that I've never been before.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to do the Europe conference circuit at some point.
It seems like they have a lot of really awesome conferences going on in Europe. Like I've always focused mostly on the United States because that's what's accessible to me, but Europe seems to do it right. They've got a ton of really good ones. And because Europe is so easy to travel around in public transportation, you can, I think it was last year, might have even just been this spring, people went to multiple conferences and just trained between them because the schedule was like perfect. And that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from people too. But it's just, and yeah, they just do well with the regionals. I am happy to see like more regionals coming back to the US. So it's nice to see them popping up. Rocky Mountain Ruby and others.
Oh yeah, big time Rocky Mountain Ruby fan. That was a great conference too. And Colorado is a blast to be in. I've only ever gone for conferences, but I always tack on extracurriculars because it's just such a fun state.
We just got to get Ruby on Ails back.
Yes, I've heard about Ruby on Ails and it sounds amazing. Jeremy Smith is working on a Ruby on Trails, which is just Rubyist backpacking up in the Blue Ridge area. So that's also cool. I love like the Ruby adjacent things where it's like, no, we're not actually going to a conference. It just so happens that we're backpackers and we're Rubyists. So we have two shared common things. So we should have no problem becoming friends on this little mini trip. And it sounds so much fun. Cody's also doing Rawhide Ruby, which also sounds awesome. Renting out a ranch.
Of all the ones, like I hope that one comes through. When he like was talking about that for the first time on Twitter, I was like, I jumped into the conversation early and I claimed dibs on sponsoring the Rawhide Ruby beverage burrow. So
nice. Yes.
so that it's going to be the HoneyBadger beverage burrow.
I love it.
I just keep staking my claim.
I love all the weird ideas that people have for ways to just hang out with Rubyists. And it's a testament to how awesome our community is that we don't just want to hang out at conferences. We want to hang out in all the places. And on the topic of regional conferences kind of having a resurgence, I think another thing that'll kind of give it a boost is Ruby Central saying that they're not going to do RailsConfs anymore after next year and focus on supporting the regional conferences. So I think that's a huge blocker, at least from what I've heard from like Spike and Jeremy and Jason from Sin City Ruby, that like, without a playbook, if you're like, oh, I want to run a conference, like that is a very long checklist of things that if you don't know to check those things off, you might be in a huge panic situation. So hearing someone with the experience and expertise like Ruby Central being like, we're going to support and here's all the ways that we can support it, including a playbook, is so cool. I'm pretty excited for that. I'm bummed that RailsConf is going away, but excited for the regionals that could come from it.
Same here. I think it's a good direction. I wasn't sure what to think at first, but the more I thought about it, like the more it just seems like it's a good thing for them to focus on the Ruby ecosystem and kind of their core mission. And you're right. There's so much knowledge locked up in the people that have run the conferences. We used to have, I don't know how many regional Ruby conferences existed back in like 2013, 2014 when we started HoneyBadger, but I like went to all of them one year and it felt like a pretty long year of travel in the US, that is, or at least like between the three of us who founders, we all went to cover them all. But yeah, there's so many organizers out there, but Ruby Central seems like the perfect organization to bring that knowledge together and consolidate and then share it with new people who want to pursue organizing or community engagement.
Yeah, I'm very excited for someone, not me, definitely not me, but someone to organize a Ruby meetup or Ruby conference, as it were, in Philadelphia, because I would love to go to one in my backyard and I don't want to plan it because that requires a level of organization I don't think I possess, but we'll see what the playbook looks like when Ruby Central gets around to that, because who knows, if they make it easy enough, it could tip the scale in the favor of running one.
That would be awesome. I'd go to a conference in Philadelphia. I went to one conference there. It wasn't a Rails Ruby one. It's called Bacon Biz. It was a conference that Amy Hoy, who actually was like an old school Rails person back in the day, she ran a little conference for like bootstrapped, self-funded business, online business. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Very cool. Yeah. Philly's a really cool city, and I could see it being a very fun city to do a conference in. I'm currently campaigning for the last RailsConf to be in Philadelphia because we've never had a RailsConf, and
really?
I feel like most of the places on the list have had a RailsConf. We need
That's
a RailsConf
surprising.
before they go away.
I would have expected Philly to be on the list and the past RailsConfs. So I don't know. Maybe I'll change my vote. I was selfishly voted for the West Coast options, but I don't know. I could get on the Philly bandwagon.
I put San Francisco pretty high because I've never been to San Francisco.
Okay.
But then, yeah, the East Coast is way easier travel, especially if it was Washington, D.C. Again, prefer Philly, but I could do D.C. in my car, and that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, DC is cool too. I like DC.
Absolutely. A lot of good. And especially if you're coming from far enough out of town that you don't get to visit with frequency, it can make for a great trip. But so could Philadelphia. Hint, hint, wink, wink, Ruby Central. Philadelphia would be a great place.
Totally.
For Rails. So you have just released insights in HoneyBadger with Badger QL, which I love the name of Badger QL. What is something like a big feature like that, which is almost like a product-sized feature? What's the process like on a small team of 4 of getting that from, hey, we have this idea, to now we're out and you have to run around the world marketing it?
So for our product development cycles, we've been following the shape up process from Basecamp past 2 or 3 years or so. And that's worked pretty well for just developing like kind of normal size HoneyBadger features. We have 6-week product cycles and we try to pick something that we can build within that time frame. Insights was a little different. It kind of threw that process off for a little while, especially like last year and kind of early this year. So this product, we actually started it as it was going to be a completely separate product from HoneyBadger. And we were thinking of making it like a self-hosted kind of on-prem style observability logging tool. And so we've built a lot of it, kind of like the infrastructure for it was built separately, which is kind of nice actually, because it's kind of a completely different beast to run and scale and all those sorts of things. But as we like built it over the past year, we realized that it had a lot of potential to make HoneyBadger as a whole much better. And we have this existing market. We don't have a market for just a brand new logging tool. You know, it's a completely different competitive landscape. And so we came to realize like this needs to be in HoneyBadger. And so basically, when we decided to do that, we had been building like the UI part of the application like in the separate thing, but we just basically moved that into HoneyBadger and it's being like backed by the same service. So that kind of was a little bit of a detour, but I think it was also some necessary like exploration to kind of figure out what we wanted to do and where it should fit. So yeah, that was like a long running kind of project in the background as we were like continuing to build HoneyBadger and everything. Initially, it was mostly one of our developers who was like really wanted to build this, and he was the one that primarily was working on it. So we let Kevin go and just work on this thing for a pretty long time. And it was a lot of work and it was a lot of design and just architecture that he did. But it was a great thing to do because he really came through and built this awesome addition to HoneyBadger. So yeah, we like kind of drug our feet on launching it, I feel like, a little bit. And with a small team, that probably was part of it. We might have shipped it a little faster with more people. But we got it launched earlier, I think January, February this year, and have been in marketing mode. And now we're back into our 6-week development cycles as well. So we're adding new things regularly, and it's really nice to get back into that flow.
What kind of challenges did you face when you were kind of made that decision? Okay, this actually needs to be part of HoneyBadger. So a little bit of a pivot. Sounds like you guys stay flexible enough that any pivot's not major deal, but certainly when you think something's going to be completely separate and now you're like, oh wait, we're going to bring it in here completely. What was one of the biggest challenges of tackling that?
I think the biggest one was solving how to add this big new thing to our UI and our product. It already has a lot of things in it. And how do we add this in a way that is not just going to add additional clutter and complexity to the product as a whole? Because our goal with HoneyBadger is to be the simple option. So we want everything to be extremely easy to understand and get into and set up and use. So I feel like we probably still have some design challenges around actually delivering on that promise and where we are now. But we did a lot of work around even just restructuring the navigation and the application and doing some information architecture stuff. We worked with some designers who helped us, a design team that helped us kind of figure out what we wanted to do with the product in HoneyBadger and also how we wanted to position it. I think the positioning is the other hard problem that came out of this. It's just that our category has been error tracker for a long time. And we've added other types of monitoring, we have uptime monitoring and other things we do cron and background job monitoring, for example. But we've always been an error tracker first. And this product is big enough where it could eventually take over a lot of the product and be the thing we lead with. And getting from there to actually having that in, click in people's heads of, oh, HoneyBadger is not just an error tracking app now. It's more of an APM or performance monitoring or logging tool. Kind of figuring out that positioning is an ongoing process.
Right. That's definitely within your wheelhouse as a marketer too. But you mentioned in the beginning that you and Ben are both technical founders. So when you started having to wear all the hats, especially the marketing hat, I'm always impressed by someone who's very good at design. They can see things and make subtle tweaks and holy crap, that looks so much better. Or I would have never come up with that. And marketing is a lot of the same, where it's it's marketing. You just tell people that it's going on. But good marketing is highly effective. And it's wild to see people come up with effective marketing ideas. So did you sort of have a background in marketing already? Or was it just a hat you were interested in? How do you go from I'm technical, I can build the thing, now I need to market the thing?
I've always worked for myself. So in that sense, I've always been interested in business and marketing. I think before HoneyBadger, I did freelance Rails development. And before that, I did freelance PHP development. I did have that interest in the business and marketing side already, but I was looking at some of our early HoneyBadger marketing and design stuff that we did when we first launched. And it's I think there was actually a design where we actually didn't have a call to action on one of the pages or something. So we were not good at marketing when we started out. And it's been a long learning process. But yes, I was kind of interested in it, but I was not good at it. I'm not necessarily claiming I'm good at it now, but I feel like I've learned a lot more than I used to know. And we've been around in the kind of indie hacker before it was really indie hacker community. MicroConf is a conference that we attended for years, even prior to starting HoneyBadger. Some of my partners were going to the kind of bootstrapper or startup world where there's a lot of talks and content about how to do marketing effectively. So that's something we kind of followed over the years and just continually leveled up our knowledge and skill in executing, basically. Yeah, it's been kind of just an ongoing process. And I do still like to do the engineering side. So That's always a challenge when you're a founder. If you're a technical founder, is like you really kind of want to be coding a lot of the time, but that's not always what the business calls for.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I do. I really enjoy the marketing because I love the creative things you can do with it.
That's awesome. What is your least favorite hat to wear?
I'm not a fan of taxes. So like accounting. Ben, he handles a lot of the administrative side of the business, which I really appreciate. I can do that stuff, but I'm happy that he does it.
I don't think anyone likes doing taxes. I don't even think
like
CPAs necessarily like doing it.
The things we really would rather not be doing are administrative things, accounting, compliance. Ben does the annual security audit for our SOC 2 compliance, for example. There's all these things that you just have to do if you have a business that handles user data, and that's not fun so much. But I enjoy the rest of the business, like marketing, product development, support. We still all rotate on customer support. So we're always supporting our users directly.
So we did sort of touch on blockers a little bit, at least from the insights perspective, but is there a current blocker that you're working on or a recent one that we haven't talked about yet that would be suitable for question number 2 of what's a current blocker?
I think as a founder in a small team, there are so many things that I want to do, so many opportunities, I feel like, for things to work on. And I just can't do them all. So I have to kind of ruthlessly prioritize if I want to get anything effective done. And so I don't know if that's so much a blocker as just juggling a lot.
I consider it a blocker.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is.
The whole idea of I can't do everything. And if I try and do everything, nothing will get done well. And I want to do things well. That's a constant struggle. That's like an everyday blocker, I feel like. That's something that I talk about with my buddy at work right now is every morning we're just like, let's pick something I have to get done today so that I know what to focus on, because otherwise I'll just touch 100 different things and probably not actually get any of them done. I feel you.
I do that too. And I have so many great ideas I want to pursue, but it's you got to pick one and just get it done, ship it, as we like to say.
Yes, as the shirt with the giant badger eating the bugs says, which is one of the greatest shirts I've ever gotten at a conference and arguably one of the best stickers. So the last question is my favorite, but it also doesn't have to end the conversation. We can go down a very deep rabbit hole if you want. What is something cool, new, or interesting that you've learned, discovered, built, want to talk about, open-ended?
My favorite one I was thinking about is you can just email anyone out of the blue. It doesn't matter if they're just a random person or a famous person. And one of the emails I sent recently was there's an artist. So you mentioned shirts. This is a good segue probably. So we ran out of shirts recently. Finally, we've had that shirt design for a long time. It's, 5 years or maybe more. And so it's time to do a new shirt. So I'm thinking about artists and I'm like, what's my bucket list of people who would do art for HoneyBadger? And there's this artist named Jim Phillips, who is a legend of the skate industry. And he's the artist that did, I don't know if you ever heard of Santa Cruz skateboards. They're a really famous skate company out of Santa Cruz, California. They're really well known for their t-shirts and their skate decks and graphics and stuff. And there's this one design, it's an illustration of this hand that's kind of screaming. It's got a screaming mouth in it. It's been their logo. I think it was originally designed in the 70s or something. But anyway, this is Jim Phillips. It's the artist that has done most of their art for the last 40 years. And he's actually, I think he's retired now and not working, but he has a son named Jimbo Phillips. And Jimbo has taken over the mantle from his dad. So Jimbo has taken over doing the art for Santa Cruz skateboards. So I just sent him an email recently and he got back to me and was like, yeah, I do commissions and stuff. And so I'm talking to him right now about doing some art for HoneyBadger. And that's just pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it.
That sounds awesome. That's a cool little side adventure of, hey, we need new shirts. And I get an opportunity to talk to an artist I love about potentially doing that. That's so cool.
I mean, there is some question of whether, is this for me or is it for HoneyBadger? But but I think it's going to be cool.
You're Mr. HoneyBadger, so
I know.
Is it not?
I think it's going to be pretty cool. We'll see what he comes up with. But yeah, that's the part of marketing that I really love is having a weird idea and going and trying to execute it. A lot of times those are the things that really resonate with people, I think, too. Because like you mentioned, you loved our conference shirts in the past. And it's just like, I don't know why people make crappy shirts.
I don't know either.
Every time I get like a Gildan, or like just some like logo shirt or whatever, no one's ever going to wear this again.
Right.
Just throwing money.
Yeah, that's the worst. You get a shirt and it's like, sometimes it's even a really cool design, but it's like super uncomfortable to wear. Or the design is that heavy print where you're like, I had a little bit of sweat on me, so now my shirt is sticking to me in an excessive way. That just is such a bummer because I'm like, I love this design. Now I can't wear the shirt. It's one of the things I love about the HoneyBadger shirt. Big ass design, super comfy shirt.
Ultra soft.
Design does not get in the way. Yeah, it's a great shirt. I wear that shirt way too much. So I'm very excited for new HoneyBadger shirts because I need something that isn't worn 3 times a week.
I'm excited too.
So is there anything that we didn't talk about that you kind of were hoping we would talk about on the show? Because it's your episode.
I guess the other thing I've learned and discovered recently in Codeland, which is actually like, I don't know if I learned this, but I rediscovered it, is I've been like adding some interactivity to my personal website blog, which is Jekyll. And I was like, I want to be able to like accept not like comments, like a commenting system, but there's this thing called web mentions, which like lets you basically pull social media activity into your website so that you can show it on your like blog post, for example. If you got like some retweets or likes on Mastodon, for example, it can show it on your actual website. So this has like an endpoint that it needs. And of course, Jekyll is a static site generator. So there's no, I can't like just have a Rails route or something to accept something live. So I have just like a Hetzner server that I'm running my website on right now. And so I decided to just use a Ruby still supports CGI bins. Back when I started out, like back in 2000 or 1999 or 98 or whatever, I was like using Apache with Perl and CGI bins to like write my guest book script or whatever it was that I had on my website at the time. And so I'm literally doing the same thing now, except I'm using Ruby. And now I'm using Ruby.
Oh, there you go. Perl-esque.
I actually did write some Perl just for old time's sake. Actually, I had ChatGPT write some Perl. And then I had ChatGPT translate the Perl back into Ruby when I needed to add a second endpoint. So it's incredibly simple, but it's fun. It's been kind of fun to play with old ways of doing things.
Is it just something that sits on your site, or does it trigger a rebuild once your endpoint is hit with this web mention?
Yeah, so basically what it does is, so the web mention endpoint listens for an incoming webhook, which is like sending the web mention to the site. And it just basically takes that, it's a JSON body. So it just takes that and writes it into Jekyll. I have a data directory in Jekyll where it just writes that JSON, which then becomes available when Jekyll is building the site. And I'm running a process on a task. It's a systemd task, actually, that is just running Jekyll's, I think it's incremental builds, like with the watch flag enabled. So it's not rebuilding on every single update, but it is watching for new files. And when a new data file is written to the directory, it automatically rebuilds the pages that need that file. So it's seems to work pretty well. Occasionally it'll get like confused and not rebuild a page, and I'm kind of trying to figure out why, but
I like that.
I don't know how much time I have to spend debugging my blog.
Yes, everyone's ongoing project is either their blog or their portfolio page.
It makes no sense to spend this much time on it, and that's completely fine because that's just what we do as developers on the internet.
Everyone needs a hobby.
Yeah.
Ours is also our day job. Yep. It just turns out.
Exactly.
That, where did the HoneyBadger name come from?
The name was originally a code name for the project. So when we started, I had 2 partners, Ben Curtis and Starhorn, and they were had day jobs at the time at a startup in Seattle. And I was working as a freelance Rails consultant, but we had all worked together in the past as like freelancers, and Star and I actually subcontracted for Ben Curtis for his consulting company. And so we had all stayed in touch, and we had the chat room and everything where we just hung out. This was like a campfire chat. This was before Slack. But that's how we ended up starting HoneyBadger. Was like Ben and Star were becoming really frustrated with AirBrake, which was the error tracker that was really popular in Ruby and Rails at the time. And I used it too. And we had loved AirBrake because it was a really great app, and it was like one of the first of its kind. I Thoughtbot originally created it. Not everyone knows that now, but it was called Hoptoad back then. They had like this little frog logo, and they had to change the name, I think, because like someone brought a copyright or trademark infringement or something. There's something else called Hoptoad. So it was renamed to AirBrake, but then it was sold, and it was purchased by like a private equity company that kind of just jacked up the prices and stopped developing it and supporting it. And we were just frustrated with the customer support and just some issues we were starting to have with it. So Ben and Star started hacking on their own thing just to use at work, basically. And they called it HoneyBadger. I think Star named it HoneyBadger. I think Star was the one who originally named it. Could be remembering wrong, but I don't know if it actually had anything to do with the HoneyBadger meme at the time. It was kind of the right timing. So Randall's HoneyBadger, if anyone has not seen that, just go on YouTube and type Randall's HoneyBadger, I think. But it was a classic. We have this running joke at HoneyBadger that we have to name all our products after dead memes now, because just to keep the trend going.
Wait, so what was Insights' name?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. The Insights was Opticon, which is not a meme before. What was it? I think at one point we were calling it Updog, or we had something that we were calling Updog. So, which I still think we should launch a product called Updog, by the way. But yeah, I thought that would be a really fun marketing thing.
Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, so like it was a code name, and once I came on, and because I wanted an alternative to AirBrake as well, and so I basically talked them into letting me do it with them. And then we decided to launch it as a product because we figured other people had that same problem. And it turns out we were right. When we came time to launch it, we were like, what should we call this? And we all just loved HoneyBadger by that point so much that we were like, I don't know, let's call it HoneyBadger.
You got a good name and a good mascot out of the name. So I think you did good.
Served us pretty well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the naming projects internally as dead memes, or I don't know, do memes actually ever die, or do they just get less popular?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
I'd love to bring back, like you talked about bringing back Ruby on Rails. I think the conference was just called Keep Ruby Weird, and like had a super weird logo, and all the talks were goofy, and like the talks at RailsConf, like all the ones that had some sort of gimmick that made them not just someone standing up there talking at you for a half hour, 45 minutes. It's so fun to attend talks like that. It's so fun to participate. And I love that in the Ruby community, we do a lot of that. So I'd love to see someone bring back like that Keep Ruby Weird style, wise style. Like this is super weird and off the wall, but also very creative, and I love it. It's been like my favorite part of Ruby history. It's just been like, man, Ruby's been so weird. That's so awesome.
Actually, I never got to go to Keep Ruby Weird, and I always wanted to, but I remember it, and I wish they would bring it back. So are you doing like the game show things? You know, you did great, by the way, with the lightning talks. I was in the room for some of that and loved the jacket and everything. Like just great game show host vibe.
Yeah, Andy told me I had to bring it. So
it's great to see more people continuing to take up the mantle. I know Adam Cuppy did some of the, like he did game shows in the past at RailsConfs and things. And it's just, yeah, it's nice to see someone continuing that trend.
It ended up being received way better than I could have ever hoped for, to the point where like people ask me to give that talk at conferences, which I never thought would happen with anything ever. It's a lot of fun to give that because the audience just has so much fun at that kind of talk. And I'm like, this is great. I get to give a talk that everyone gets to enjoy in some capacity. Like I have contestants come up, so it's not just me. And I have the audience gets to be involved with the powers that contestants can use. And I'm like, this is definitely, people need to think about doing talks that aren't just talking for half hour, 45 minutes, like Cody doing the start, like, what could I do with Action Mailbox, and like weird stuff. And one of them being, let me start my car by sending it an email. and Joel doing his Dungeons and Dragons where he's literally jumping between this character and not. And there's just been so many really thoughtful additions to a talk where it's like, yeah, you're still learning something, but also you're going to have a lot of fun. And that always makes learning easier and you're going to remember it more. And I love that there are people in the community willing to go out and do that kind of thing. And I want to see more of those talks.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, same here. Well, yeah, thanks for your efforts there. I think you've been doing a great job.
Thank you. I'm trying. If anybody has seen my talk and has any ideas on how to make it better or expand it, feel free to reach out.
Well, I've got a question for you. What's next for the coding coders and the coders who code it? Did I say that right?
Code and the coding. Code and the coding coders who code it. Yeah, coding coders for sure.
That every time. And
everyone does.
Fully expected to, so no apologies.
Yeah. It is a very SEO optimized name that no one will be able to remember. Brittany Martin lovingly called it Coding Coders, and that's how I just refer to it in short speak. But what is next is I'm going to keep on bringing people on and releasing either monthly or bi-monthly as often as I can and having fun, just getting an excuse to talk to people that I wouldn't normally have an excuse to be like, hey, you want to come chat for an hour?
Yeah, that's cool. I love it.
That is the plan.
I love that about podcasting. It's a great chance to catch up with people, and
it's a really good excuse. Like sometimes I have friends on who I'm like, yeah, I got to talk to you anyway, but you have something really cool to talk about that I want other people to hear about. And then other times it's, hey, I don't get to talk to this person, or I really want to talk to this author or whoever. And I can be like, I have a podcast. Would you like to come and promote your book on it? And then I get a chance to have a conversation that outside of conferences I wouldn't have had. So podcasting is awesome.
Totally. Agree.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe we'll have to get you on our podcast sometime. Founder Quest.
I'm not a founder, but I don't.
You don't have to be a founder necessarily to come hang out on Founder Quest. So we've been doing a little bit more, having a little more guests lately. Actually, it's been only John Noonemaker, but 2 episodes so far. He's been hanging out and that's been fun. But we've talked about, just the same idea. Just it's a good chance to catch up with your friends and people in the community. So yeah, love the podcasts.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on, taking time out of your very busy day running the Badger to come on and chat and give us a little bit of history on the Badger and talk about some of the things that you've been going on. Where can folks find you on the internet if they want to follow you and or HoneyBadger?
Yeah, so you can find HoneyBadger at honeybadger.io, and you can find me at joshuawood.net. I have all my links there, but if you want to find me directly on like Twitter/X or whatever he's calling it
it's
nowadays.
Twitter.
If you want to find me on Twitter, it's Hey Josh Wood. I think you'll find all my links there. So
find you from there. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll definitely have you back on the next time you do something at HoneyBadger you want to come on and talk about.
Sounds great. Thanks, Drew.